different set of personality skills. And those are things that academia didn't want to fool with. Job hirers don't want to fool with them either, but that's why they fire them. And one of the things the certification tests showed that the truly incompetent, the guys that flunked the test were truly incompetent by their supervisors. The ones that passed the test with the highest scores, though, were not necessarily the ones the supervisors rated the highest. And it was the personality and the value things that made the difference in the outstanding workers as opposed to the competent ones.
Could you describe some of those personal qualities that, that you would look for in a person?
Well, sort of a commitment to your, the kind of work you're doing, commitment to the client's need, not just your own need. I mean, it's 4 o'clock, gotta go home now. We can't see anybody after 3 o'clock because I gotta leave here at 4, and that kind of personal, I do only what I have to do attitude you don't need. And like I say, respect for other people and different values, different attitudes, and different people, and still ability to treat them humanely and so forth. Those are the things that I think are more important to, in addition to the basic skills that the certification tests.
If a human service student came to you and asked for a book or an author you would recommend, who would you suggest to them?
I don't know, I think one guy who probably touched on more kinds of mental illness in a more creative way than almost anybody else was Shakespeare. If you read his plays of Shakespeare, you learn an awful lot about the plays of emotions and mental illness and so forth.
Clearly you recognize the benefits of deinstitutionalization. Can you give us some examples of success stories?
Like we have a whole lot of patients that have come through our rehab program at Community Friendship that worked at the downtown, one of the big hotels. The woman in the Human Resources Department who helps us supervise all those people, some of them working for food service, some of them working maid service, some of them working maintenance. But she was one of our patients. She had a schizophrenic break when she was in college, and after we had her in our program, she took a job there at the hotel, and they were impressed with her, and she could relate to these other people that she'd seen coming from the mental hospital. So they hire her, and she's now sort of director of training for all of their personnel in the Human Resources Department for that hotel, one of the big hotels downtown, Hyatt Regency. And she's one of our ex-patients, but she helps supervise lots of others that are working in the program. Others work with the aftercare program at the hospital that works out in more rural areas that hospital serves other than the Atlanta area. But like I say, some of them have done very well in being aftercare workers of one kind or another. Some of them work in sheltered workshops and things like that.
As you look back on the whole deinstitutionalization movement, how would you evaluate it today?
Well, certainly in terms of the numbers of people who were able to go back to the community, it was a huge success. Like in Kentucky, when I first went to a mental hospital in Kentucky, we had 7,700 patients in the mental hospitals and schools for the retarded. Today, there's about 900, maybe less. And like when I went to New York as deputy commissioner, there was something like 19,000 people in the mental hospitals, and
and welcome to another episode of your Human Service News and Information. I'm Hassan Rashid, your host, and I'll be here with you for approximately 25 more minutes. It's excellent being here with you, and you know it's always a great achievement to come into your lives like we do here at CCTV daily. And so with that, I extend an international cordial out to you of peace. Peace be unto you. Okay, first I'd like to send out my condolence to there's a judge in New York that they found in the Harlem River, dead. A judge, I guess she was a federal judge too, and they found her dead, and her name was Miss Abdul Salam. I think that's correct, but I like to send out my condolence to her family, friends, and deepest sympathies to all of those who are acquainted with her and all the people that she served in the New York City area. That's Miss Abdul Salam. I think I got that right. But as soon as I get more information on her death, well, they're still investigating. They found her dead by some river up in Harlem, I believe. And it's under mysterious circumstances. They don't know what the cause of death was, but as soon as we get more information on that, I'd like to continue to extend my deepest condolences and sympathies out to Miss Judge Abdul Salam. I think that's her name. But other than that, we'd like to move on with the broadcast. In order to remind you once again before we get started, there's 37 days left before the commencement, the new moon is sighted, and the holy month of Ramadan begins. That's the fasting and the glorification of Allah in the month of Ramadan. So stay tuned for that, okay? Next week we'll be telling you more about that, okay? I'd like to bring this this item to your attention. All you people are familiar with Social Security Administration regulations. Why don't I tell you about these two new sets of regulations that went into effect? And there's something nebulous about this as far as I'm concerned, but I'm going to read this to you and let you be the judge and see what you think about it. Okay, judging justice and aging, fighting senior poverty through law. That's the people who published this, put this online, and it's called Income Network Alert. And I quote them. It says, in the waning days of the Obama administration, the Social Security Administration finalized two new sets of regulations that will have significant impact on the disability determination process for those applying for Social Security disability insurance benefits and those applying for supplemental security income benefits on the basis of disability. The first set of regulations ensuring programs uniformity at the hearing and appeals council's level of administrative review process was finalized on December 16, 2016 and published at 81 Federal Register, number 90987. Although notice says that the rule goes into effect on January 17, 2017, it also states that the compliance is not required until May 1st, 2017. The final rule requires claimants and their representatives to submit to or inform Social Security Administration about all evidence at least 5 business days before hearing before an administrative law judge, unless a good cause exception applies. It also clarifies certain aspects of these good cause exceptions and allows for exception to the new deadlines for subpoenas, requests, objection to issues raised on a notice of hearing, and pre-hearing written statements. Although there is now a deadline for pre-hearing statements, post-hearing statements are still allowed. Hearing notices will be provided at least 17 days before hearing nationwide, rather than the current requirements of 20 days. Okay, we'll get to that later in a little while. Outside Region 1, the second set of regulations, revision to rules regarding evaluation of medical evidence. So this is what I feel is nebulous. It was published on January 18, 2017 at 82 Federal Register 5844. The regulations become effective on March 27, 2017, although many aspects will only apply to claims filed on or after that date. Most notably, these regulations expand lists of acceptable medical sources and eliminates the long-standing treating physician rule. Physician assistants and advanced practice registered nurses will be included in the list of AMS, that's acceptable medical resources. Licensed audiologists and optometrists can also be AMSs for certain purposes when the scope of their practices. Chiropractors, licensed clinical social workers, and registered nurses are still not AMS, although many comments were submitted in support of including them. Under the new regulation, educators will give no special weight to the medical opinion of a claimant's treating doctor. Instead, medical opinions and prior administrative medical findings will be evaluated equally for persuasiveness, based most importantly on consistency and supportability. SSA, that's Social Security Administration, will also rescind the following Social Security ruling. SSRS, that would be inconsistent or duplicative of these final rulings. That's okay, SSR 96-2, Title 2 and Title 16, giving controlling weight to treating source medical opinions. SSR 96-5P, Title 2 and Title 16 medical source opinion on issues referred to the commissioner. Okay, so those are the two that I find that don't seem equitable to me. You know, when they try to reverse the opinions of a treating physician and primary physician, treating physician, I think there's something ethically wrong with that. Okay. Okay, let me move on to that. And as soon as that we hear more about those issues, we'll present them to you. Okay, Senior Living represented on Mass Governor's Aging Council. The CEO of Benchmark Senior Living and Jewish Community Housing for Elderly are two of 24 people named to a group tasked with developing a plan to improve public and private affairs to support aging in Massachusetts. Governor Charlie Baker signed an executive order establishing the state's first Governor's Council to address aging in Massachusetts on Wednesday. The goal, he said, is to make the Bay State the most age-friendly state in the country for people of all ages. In addition to housing and care, we look beyond to issues of transportation, technology, community involvement, quality of life in the Commonwealth. Thomas Gray, chairman of CEO of Waltham, MA-based Benchmark Senior Living, told McKnight Senior Living. Graves said he was excited to have the opportunity to share the perspective he has gained since founding Benchmark 20 years ago in 1997. The company operated 53 senior living units and offers independent living, assisted living, memory rehabilitation service, skilled nursing in Massachusetts, and 6 other states in the Northeast. So that's Senior Living represented MA Governor's Massachusetts Aging Council. So he's trying to improve the government's relationship with the community of the aging. That's a good thing. Okay, Massachusetts has high rate of opioids-related ER visits. A new government report underscores the challenge facing public health officials in Massachusetts as the opioid addiction crisis continues to grip the state. Okay, Massachusetts has had the highest rate of opioid rate emergency room visit out of 32 states, where data was surveyed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Okay, that's a very important issue here, the high rate of opioids in Massachusetts. Okay, but you notice I keep looking over there at the clock, and there's another very important item I wanted to get to your way, and I wanted to see if we still have enough time to get it, because I want to try to share as much of this video as I can with you. This was the recent National Low Income Housing Coalition's policy forum, annual policy forum, 2017 annual policy forum held in the April weekend of the 4th and the 5th down in Washington, D.C. They had 2 key speakers that I know you're interested in. They had first one's Carson, okay, Ben Carson, and he was the keynote speaker, and the second was Miss Senator Maxine Brown. She's the CEO of the Financial Committee down in Washington, D.C., and she spoke, okay? But right now I got some some segments of the speech given by Ben Carson, and I want you to listen to this closely. He's saying that housing is a part of infrastructure, and the Republicans they support infrastructure improvements. Okay, let me see if I can get this on. Okay, hold on. Okay.
I know a lot of people are very, very concerned about the new budget numbers that have been put out there. And I think that it's a crisis and it's the end of the world. But it actually is not, because the part that people are not hearing, even though I've said it several times, is that this administration considers housing a significant part of infrastructure in our country. And as such, the infrastructure bill that's being worked on has a significant inclusion of housing in it. There is no one, Section 811, 202, nobody's going to be thrown out on the street. You know that, what would that accomplish? You know, that doesn't make any sense, and certainly not going to happen while I'm around. But, you know, we do have a responsibility to each other. And we also have a responsibility to those who come after us, to our children, to our grandchildren. And right now, we have a national debt of $20 trillion. Now, you've heard that number, and you can say that number, but does anybody really comprehend what that means? That means $60,000 for every man, woman, and child. Thousands of babies were born today, each with a price tag of $60,000 in debt on their head. And some people say, it's just a number, it doesn't mean anything. Tell that to the people of 17th century Spain, or 18th century France, or 19th century Great Britain, or ancient Egypt, or ancient Rome. They all did the same thing. Accumulated debt became fiscally irresponsible and went down the tubes. So obviously, what we're thinking about now is how do we spend efficiently and effectively. That's one of the reasons that I'm on this listening tour. I just got back on Friday from Texas, was in Detroit before that, we'll be in multiple other places, looking at the things that actually work, that are effective in getting people out of poverty and setting them on the trajectory for success, the things that actually work for the elderly and for the disabled people in our country, that encourage the public-private partnerships to occur.
Okay, that was Ben Carson at the recent National Low Income Housing Coalition's 2017 Annual Policy Forum, and his keynote address. That's part of his keynote address. And don't fret, we're gonna be, well, I guess the rest of this month, next month, you have next month, rest of this month, next month to listen or view the rest of it. We're going to try to get the rest of it on later, but right now I got some other things to get into. Okay, but first I want to remind you that he also said at this conference, home is a place where you can feel secure. Healthcare is important. He proposed housing savings accounts for units by unit maintenance of public housing where the individual resident is incentivized not to report common structural conditions or simple repair needs. The low-income housing tax credit is effective, and people are concerned about this new budget like it's a crisis of the end of the world. Okay, I found the full name of the woman, the New York State judge that was found in Hudson River, reportedly suspicious, in the circumstances around her being found there is suspicious. Her full name was Sheila Abdus Salam, was found dead in the banks of the Hudson River, and my deepest condolence and sympathy go out to her family, friends, relatives, and everyone who was in her inner and outer circle, okay, of friends and acquaintances, okay. Another thing I'd like to remind you that, okay, now's the time to ask your representative, state representative, to co-sponsor key homeless amendments. Okay, so if you'd like more information on how you can contact your state representatives and request that they co-sponsor key homeless amendments, and there's a large priority of homeless amendments on their desk right now for them to enact in law. So if you need more information about this, you can contact www.mahomeless.org/advocacy or State House 617-722-200 or www.doivotema.com, or you can also contact Kelly Turley, Associate Director of the Massachusetts Council on Homelessness. That's Kelly at mahomeless.org. Telephone number is 781-59750, extension 17, and that's to ask your state representatives to co-sponsor key homeless amendments. So you might not even have to contact those people. You can go straight to your elected officials, that's your state representatives, and ask them to co-sponsor key homeless amendments that's on their desks. And I know the Mass Coalition for the Homeless has placed a lot of priorities on the state representatives, both in the House and the Senate desks, okay? Another thing, your members of Congress, Congress is in recess until, I think that's April 21st. And all of the representatives, congressmen and senators are at home now. They're back home, they're back in their districts. So you may be seeing them somewhere at a town hall meeting, at some other event, but you're advised to contact your representatives and tell them that you don't support these budget cuts, all these budget cuts that the president has proposed in his skinny budget that he came out in January, I think. But anyway, he's proposed a lot of cuts to very vital programs, especially a lot of cuts that will affect poor people, okay? Send them deeper into poverty and homelessness. So you can contact your elected officials. They're home now. You can go to the local offices. You can write them. You can call them. You can schedule a visit with them and tell them that you don't appreciate all these cuts that's coming down the pipeline, and the fact that the people that they will be hurting the most. Okay, so that's your Congress people are back home. Contact them and your state representatives and tell them to co-sponsor these priorities on homelessness that's on their desk right now. Okay, I think we got a few more minutes. I want to send you back to Ben Carson and his recent keynote address at the National Council of Low-Income Housing Coalition's 2017 Policy Forum held down in Washington, D.C. on the weekend of the 4th and the 5th. And as soon as I get a whole lot of footage of Maxine Brown, Senator Maxine Waters, I'm going to share that with you. That might be in a couple weeks from now, but eventually we'll have that, and we'll have other footage from the conference too to share with you. But I'm going to get back. I had a few minutes left. I can get back to Representative HUD, CO. He's a new CO of the Housing Urban Development down in Washington, D.C. Let's listen to what he has to say. Yeah.
I know a lot of people are very, very concerned about the new budget numbers that have been put out there. And I think that it's a crisis and it's the end of the world. But it actually is not, because the part that people are not hearing, even though I've said it several times, is that this administration considers housing a significant part of infrastructure in our country. And as...
Okay, I want to remind you before we go off the air, 37 days before Ramadan, and next week we're going to share with you something on Islamic human services agencies and the role of human service professionals. That's Islamic human services agencies and the role of human service professionals. Next week, 37 days, Ramadan, Hassan Rashid, and I always leave you with the fact that superior can never be subjected by inferior wisdom. So next time, I'll leave you with the universal greetings and cordial peace and sanity, and that is Assalamu alaikum.
such, the infrastructure bill that's being worked on has a significant inclusion of housing in it. There is no one